right after I recovered from COVID, I wasn't at my worst. I was still able to go to work, but what would happen is I would work for like a couple of days, and then by like the third day, I would just be completely wiped out. And then I would kind of recover again, go back to work, and then get completely wiped out again after a few days. And I thought, I just need to keep doing this and then I'll get out of it. But I just got worse and worse and worse until I had to quit my job. And then that's kind of when I was at my lowest. That's when, I wasn't able to work, and I was just getting that fatigue and that flu-y feeling very regularly. And now I am actually getting back into doing something I really like, which is looking after pets for people. So I've been looking after a number of dogs now, which requires me to take them for walks every day when I have them. So I'm able to, whereas before, I could only walk a couple of times or a few times a week or 2 weeks. I can go a number of weeks when I have dogs, taking them for walks.
How's it going, everybody? Miguel here from CFS Recovery. In this video, we have Jordan all the way from Australia, and he's been recovering from long COVID. He's made a ton of progress. Super great to have you on here, Jordan. Want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Jordan. I'm from Perth, Western Australia. 30 years old, and I've been in the program since November last year. And I've just been diligently applying the principles, listening to the coach's advice, and I've just been making steady progress and slowly getting my life back.
Yeah, and you've been doing awesome, man. So, I mean, you found the program. Well, you joined the program. It was about 6 months after you got COVID, or you came down
Mm.
with all of this, and that was about, what was that? Less than a year ago. It was about 10 months ago.
10 months
You
ago,
joined.
yeah.
So you made tons of progress, and it's great to have you on here. You're going to be an inspiration to many. Well, you are with this video, but let's go back in time just so we could paint a picture for people leading up to you getting COVID and entering the world of CFS. What was life like? What were you doing? What was the pace of life, and what did all that look like?
Yeah, so I before I got COVID, I had some stresses going on. Like I was working at Kmart almost full time, and that was quite physically demanding. So I was doing that every day of the week, except the weekend. But so that was a physical stressor on me. It was quite demanding, and then I also had some mental stresses as well, dealing with some anxiety at work, and just poor reactions to stuff that would happen. I would just immediately react and feel anxious, and just not deal with things properly. So yeah, that's what life was like before I got COVID. So and I was there were signs and before, like I was feeling tired more often. I was having a bit of gut discomfort, things like that, but nothing like full-blown CFS or anything yet. So
Got it. Interesting. So there were some signs of your nervous system being on edge, but I guess at the time, it wasn't a serious concern because you were still fully functional, right?
yeah.
Got
Yeah.
it. Interesting. That's how it is for most people typically. And it's not until something like that long COVID hits you or some kind of traumatic event, then the nervous system just goes haywire, right? So for you, you got the COVID, and what was that like? When you initially got it, did it just hit you all of a sudden, or did you get a little bit better in that first month and then after that just completely tanked?
Yeah, so what happened is I got COVID and I wasn't really concerned about it. Actually, like my experience with COVID wasn't that intense or anything. So I recovered actually pretty quickly from it within maybe 3 or 4 days. But what ended up happening was I had flare-ups of fatigue afterwards. And at first I thought, oh, this is just like the virus, like I've still got it. And it's weirdly coming in and out with fatigue. But then it just kept dragging on and on. And so what I did was I started Googling, and I came across something called post-viral fatigue. And I read like this can last years. And from that moment, I think that's when everything kind of snowballed in my mind. And I think that's where the CFS kind of got a hold on me, and the reason why it went for as long as it did before I joined the program.
I see. So when you first got it, or when it all hit you, and you're getting all these symptom flares. What were the biggest symptoms that you experienced?
The biggest symptom was fatigue, and like a general kind of flu-like feeling, kind of like if I had the flu. So I was just a bit kind of headachy and kind of a bit like a stuffy feeling in my nose. I had some headaches. At one point, I was even getting sore throats coming and going, and just really intense anxiety,
Mm.
mainly because I was anxious about what was going on because it was just continuing.
Yeah. And what was your activity level like? When your capacity dropped, were you ever bedridden or homebound? Like how bad did it get for you?
So I'm not one of the cases where I got completely bedbound or couch bound or anything like that. I would say I was almost housebound. So what would happen is like I would feel like I'd be all good to go and do something like go for a walk or go shopping or seeing a friend. But then what would happen is like once every 2 days or 3 days, I would be right back into pretty strong fatigue and that flu-like feeling again. And then I would have to take a number of days at home until I kind of those symptoms went away. And then I would go out again, but then I would immediately just get shoved right back in. So it was kind of like I was in and out of the world, going in and out of my house. So almost housebound is what level
Got
I
it.
was at. Yeah.
And when you were housebound, were you mainly just, resting on the couch or just in your bed most of the time and you're just dealing with a bunch of symptoms? Like you could still function, but the symptoms would just get really, really intense.
Yeah, so in my bed or on the couch a lot. I could still physically walk around my house, but I was just so uncomfortable. Yeah, it was just like I had a flu like every 3 days.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when all this is going on, what were you trying to do to solve it? Because at first, I mean, you kind of wait for it to go away, but then it just seems to not go away and it keeps coming back. So, what kind of stuff were you doing to try and figure out what was going on?
Yeah, so my first strategy was before I knew what was going on, was to just push through it. I think right after I got COVID, I mean, right after I recovered from COVID, I wasn't at my worst. I was still able to go to work, but what would happen is I would work for like a couple of days, and then by like the third day, I would just be completely wiped out. And then I would kind of recover again, go back to work, and then get completely wiped out again after a few days. And I thought, I just need to keep doing this and then I'll get out of it. But I just got worse and worse and worse until I had to quit my job. And then that's kind of when I was at my lowest. That's when, yeah, I wasn't able to work. And I was just getting that fatigue and that flu-y feeling very regularly. Yeah.
Got it. And at that time, so when we're looking at a timeline, around what month was that? So you got the COVID in May, and then when were you completely off the job and just, staying home most of the time?
Yeah, so I quit my job in August, but between May and August, I had a lot of time off at work. I was taking pretty much all the types of leave I had. So I was really only at work for like maybe a few weeks to a month more
Mm,
before I quit, even though it was a longer period between May and August.
I see. I see. Okay. And then all of this is happening. Are you going to doctor's appointments and, going to specialists trying to figure this out?
I'm trying to remember if I went to a doctor. I actually caught on pretty quickly with what was actually going on because on my Instagram, I saw a page that was talking about chronic fatigue and post-viral fatigue and how it's actually the nervous system. And the person that I saw on Instagram had actually had CFS and recovered, fully recovered, knowing that it was the nervous system and using nervous system techniques. So I didn't actually go through a long process of seeing different doctors, trying different medications and stuff like that. I might have seen a doctor once, yeah, only once. And then after that, I think I figured out, what was probably going on.
Yeah, because it seems like you found out it was CFS pretty early. And was it just because the symptoms they just completely matched your symptoms or the whole situation? You were like, wow, that sounds exactly like me. Was that what made you
Yeah,
confident that it was CFS?
yeah,
Got
yeah.
it. Got it. Okay. And then, so it's August going into September. When did you find our channel? When did you find CFS recovery? And then when you did find us, what made you want to apply for the Recovery Jumpstart program?
So I found this program probably just before November. Found you on Instagram. I just randomly found you by, I think I was just looking for people that recovered, and then I found you, and I just went through your material. And by that time, I'd already actually been in another program, applying the principles from that program, but there were just some things that were missing in like my understanding and how I was applying the principles in that program. And so I decided to get in contact with you and then see what your program was about. And with the previous program, I didn't have like constant support, like actual in-person
Communication
support.
back and
Yeah,
forth, right?
it was just a do-it-yourself program. It did have one where it was more interactive, but at the time I didn't want to pay for that specific option. So
Got it. So it was just video modules, what you had done up to
yeah,
this point, self-study, self-learning, all that.
yeah.
Got it. Okay. So we had that application call. What made you decide to want to get on board with us after you had tried something in the past that didn't really get you past the finish line? What made you want to give this a shot?
So apart from just seeing how you had fully recovered after being in a really, really dark place, and other people having success with the program. Apart from that, your recovery approach came at recovery from a different angle to the program that I was in before, even though the basic idea for recovery is the same for both programs, in that both knew that it's about the nervous system. I knew that, or I had a suspicion that your tools and techniques were a lot more simple and cut straight down to the core of what needs to be done. So I just thought I'll try this program and see if it resonates more than the previous one I was in. The previous program is good, and I've heard other people have had success, but it just wasn't resonating, a lot. So
Got it.
decided to try something different.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know the program you're talking about too. And yeah, it's definitely been successful with some people, but other people, I guess, like yourself, just need a little more hands-on support, like a little more specific direction, especially with the increasing activity, when to rest, like the very specific stuff, right?
Yeah, I should mention actually, knowing that you guys were actually going to personally come up with a plan and yeah, really go into the details of like my specific situation. That was really something that
Mm-hmm.
attracted me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So for you, when you're on calls with these other people, in Recovery Jumpstart and in the mentorship, and you're seeing all these people and you're on a similar journey as them, what was it like being on calls with other people going through the same journey you were on at that time?
It was good. It was kind of exciting in a way, because even though there were a lot of people around me that were in a probably a worse situation than me, and I was kind of exposed to that, I still felt safe, because all the coaches were like confident in their ability to help everyone recover. And yeah, because there was a support network, it just made things kind of more exciting to be going on a journey together on
Mm-hmm.
recovery.
Yeah. And that's a huge thing in the program. It's feeling like you're part of a small team, or feeling like you're part of a small group of people. Like that sense of community is so powerful. Knowing, especially when you're flaring up, that you're not the only one going through it. There's other people who are experiencing what you're experiencing right here, right now, and they're also responding well. They're also doing the right things in recovery. And it's interesting to see, sometimes you'll be feeling great or feeling decent, and then the other people will be in flare-ups. And other times, like the next week, it's the other way around. You're in a flare and they're feeling all right. But everybody's kind of on the same journey, and they're pulling each other forward. So for you, in terms of biggest takeaways and golden nuggets, what do you think was the biggest mind shift for you, that really helped propel you forward in recovery? What do you think that was? Or maybe there was a couple.
Um, One of the mind shifts I had was that just because a tool or technique is simple doesn't mean it's not effective. So like I was actually quite surprised how effective something like just responding well to symptoms and to life stresses led to progress. And also, the pacing element as well. Just how the simplicity of it didn't mean that it was not effective. That was a big mind shift, and so I was just able to fully commit to those principles. And from that moment on, that's when I started experiencing progress. I think about a couple of months into the program, that's when the bigger shifts started happening.
Hmm.
So yeah, that
Yeah.
was just, I was so surprised how the simplicity of the tools actually led to a lot of progress over time.
Yeah. And that's so true that not a lot of people talk about just how it doesn't have to be complex, right? And complexity doesn't equal speed of recovery. Actually, the simpler you go, the better, because it's less stuff for your hypersensitive brain and nervous system to focus on. So the simpler we can make it, the better. So for you, a couple months into this, or after you started with us, you start having these mind shifts. What was the most memorable kind of win you had? What was that first aha moment where it was like, wow, this stuff actually works? Pretty cool. I've been applying it. I'm starting to reap the benefits and see the results. What was one of those moments where maybe it was a win, maybe it was an experience you had, but share that with us.
Yeah, so because my main symptoms like fatigue, my main issue was like walking and doing physical activity. So I think the first moment where I was thought to myself, okay, something's actually working now is about a couple of months in. I went on a much longer walk. I think it was like a 40-minute walk. And then I went on another 40-minute walk the next day, amazingly. And then I think I went on another walk the next day, similar length. And I was so surprised because when I joined the program, I think I was able to do like maybe 2 or 3 short walks a week or every 2 weeks, and then go into like a big adjustment period with a lot of fatigue and the flu sensations. So yeah, when I got those 3 big walks in, that was like kind of the moment where I thought, okay, something's happening now.
Yeah, I think I remember that. You posted about that, right? In the Wins channel.
One of the walks was also, on a really hot day as well, which is like it's almost 40 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but
Yeah, it's like
I just
pretty wild.
yeah, I just remember feeling so strong and powerful and happy when I was doing that. So yeah.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I remember you posting a bunch about your new ability to go for walks, and it's pretty cool when you can do that, because when that happens, it's like you reach a mental milestone, or even a milestone for your nervous system. It's like, wow, I did not think I could do that, but I just did it. So now all this other stuff I'm worried about that's on about the same level as this, I know I can do that now. So when you reach those milestones, it's really rewarding, especially when you think to yourself, wow, 3 months ago or 6 months ago, this would have been impossible. There's no way I could have done this. So that was an awesome early mind shift for you. And so maybe just share a little bit more what happened after that. Once you gained that confidence, once you saw that it was working and you had those mind shifts, what was it like after that?
Well, after that, I think I went into an adjustment period as expected. But I was actually excited for to be in that adjustment period because I was also in an adjustment period before those walks, and so I knew that being in an adjustment period and responding well in it would then lead to another jump. So although I did actually have a doubt come up where I was thinking maybe this was like a fluke, maybe this
Hmm.
was just a random increase in activity. But then after that, the next adjustment period, I then did more activity, and then I'm pretty sure after every adjustment since, I've increased activity in some way. So by now, I'm pretty confident that after every adjustment period, you get to a certain extent, to different extents, stronger than before.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was the same with me. And then when that happens, you genuinely have almost like a positive association with adjustment periods, right? Because
Yeah.
you're that much closer to getting your life back and you're moving forward Whereas a lot of people, especially in the beginning, we try to avoid flare ups or symptoms at all costs. And we're even terrified of them. Like we think they're the enemy when they're actually opportunities to rewire the nervous system. Right. So
It's
go ahead.
it's no, just it's completely counterintuitive. It just seems like it shouldn't happen like that. But I've learned that like a lot of things in life are actually counterintuitive, and it
Mm-hmm.
it it works like that, not just for me, but for so many people in the program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you have to lean into the discomfort because if you pull away too soon, you're never gonna move forward. You're never gonna make progress. It's like this story I heard, especially with this principle, it's you have to really trust the knowledge and the information that it's going to work out, even when it doesn't make sense in your mind sometimes. You just got to trust that it works because other people have done it. It's like that there's this analogy or this story of this guy who used to fly helicopters in the war, right? This is in the Vietnam War. And he was telling somebody who was really scared to do something. He said, you know what? I felt this so many times before. When we were in the war, there were a lot of times when the helicopters would just stall, right? They would stall and you would have to kill the engine, turn it off, and nosedive straight into the ground because if you gain enough momentum falling down, you can turn it back on and then that momentum will bring you back up out of it. But you have to, for a second, it's almost like you're about to crash, intentionally crashing into the ground, killing the engine. But that's actually the way out. So you have to trust your instinct. And even when it was super uncomfortable, you have to go deeper into that and be like, okay, there's no turning back. Kill the engine. We're going straight into the ground. Then boom, crank it on and you use the momentum to swoop out. Really
How's
interesting
this?
story.
How's this the first time I'm hearing about this analogy? I haven't heard this analogy, or not analogy, but well, yeah, kind of. But
Yeah,
yeah, I haven't heard it before.
it's from Robert Kiyosaki. He explains it a lot better than I do, but it's one of those things where you got to trust your instincts. You got to trust that it's gonna get you out of this mess essentially, and that's kind of like adjustment periods. You know, sometimes you have to lean into it and not completely retreat and go back into fear mode, but you got to remember like this is part of the process. And when you can do that, just like you did, especially early on, then after that, you were able to work your way through adjustment periods very, very well, which is why you leveled up, pretty much all the times you had adjustment periods. So what was another time where you really realized like, holy cow, my body is actually making a comeback? Maybe share that. Was it a rave that you went to, or was it like a party, right, with loud music and everything? There was a few times.
Yeah, yeah, I did go to
Coachella,
in yeah, no, in March I went to a Coachella themed party.
a theme party.
Um,
That's right.
yeah,
Not
it was
actual
a
Coachella.
birthday. No, no, no. It was in like in the bush and stuff. So it looked like they actually did a good job of setting it up. But that was like I think the first party I went to since I was sick. So yeah, that was a moment where, and I was there for like 9 hours maybe or something like that.
Damn, on your feet
But
for
yeah,
nine
that was
hours with loud
yeah, and
music in the heat.
I was dancing. I had some drinks. Yeah, and talking to people, socializing. So yeah, that was also another time where I was thinking, well, this is actually working. And yeah, and many other times after that.
That's awesome, dude. When I saw that win, I was like, okay, he's out of the trenches for sure. Like now is
Mm,
the enjoyable part of recovery where you're starting to add in all these things again. And the interesting thing is like you've been to parties before, you've had a few drinks before, you socialized before, but now it's just so different because you almost had to earn your way back to getting to live
mm,
again. Um,
mm,
so you're that much more grateful for even the
yeah.
simple stuff, right? So maybe touch on that. What would you say is different now than, I would say your previous life, even before you got sick? What are some differences now? Uh, a lot of people say there's a lot of differences in their mindset, the way they handle stress, the way they think, just their level of gratitude. But for you, what are some big differences you've noticed?
Yeah, so there has been a lot of moments of gratitude for even small things. And there's like a higher level of awareness of my automatic reactions to circumstances. Um, my response, not just to symptoms. At this point, I don't really have any anxiety around my symptoms. It's more responding well to other things going on.
Mm,
So I prioritize my response now very, very highly, whereas before I didn't even think about it. And it's kind of like, it's just the whole mentality of recovery is kind of breaking out into everyday life.
hmm
And yeah, benefiting me. I've been much more calmer. I've been much more easygoing on myself,
hmm
patient with myself. Um, that's all I can think of right now. But
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess like even like any overthinking or over analyzing, we're able to catch ourselves. Whereas
yeah,
before we would just essentially run unchallenged because we didn't even realize it was going on. But I think one of the gifts CFS gives us is, I mean, it teaches us how powerful our brains are and our nervous system is. Like if push comes to shove, it can shut our body down and stop us from walking. So we take these things more seriously. Like we don't allow our minds to go down these rabbit holes because we
yeah.
know the
The
consequences
cost
that
is
come
too
with it,
much.
right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I've through this process, like I've become more aware of just how much physical discomfort is actually caused by stuff that's going on in your mind, like your thoughts and even just your underlying assumptions and beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
it's crazy, and I think that's why like modern medicine doesn't pick up on it, is because they're just focusing on like the body level, not looking at the mind
Yeah.
level. So
Yeah, they're focusing on the symptoms, trying to fix the symptoms, but the symptoms come from somewhere, right? And if we fix the root cause, then we fix everything downstream, which is, our body, because it all starts in our brain. A lot of people say, oh, it's all in your mind. No, it's physically in your brain, the way the patterns work. So if we can fix that, it fixes all the symptoms that come with it. So there's just so many things we learn from CFS, and you're so right about how a lot of these principles you realize they spill into different areas of life. How do we handle stress that we didn't see coming up? How do we handle the life curveballs, right? Whereas before we're just on autopilot. Now we're a lot more mindful of that stuff, right? So for people who are watching this right now and they're seeing your story, and they're wishing that they could get better, like you, maybe people with long COVID, people who are mainly housebound right now. What are some words of encouragement you would say to them, right, to help inspire them if they're in a dark place right now and they could use some motivation and just encouragement? What would you say to them?
I would say, in a weird way, like, and it probably doesn't seem like it, but I can see clearly now that CFS is actually an opportunity, because the reason you're sick is because of dysfunctional things that are going on, mostly in your mind. Um, and so it's actually an opportunity to become more aware of those patterns and undo them. So, which will not only help you recover, but it's even more exciting than that, because it will lead you into a new version of yourself, where those dysfunctional patterns don't exist. So you'll be essentially moving into a much better life than before. So yeah, I really think, especially with more and more people getting long COVID, I have like my own suspicions that it's kind of like pushing people to really start becoming aware of the things that are making them sick, so that they can level up. And then that will actually make society as a whole more functional and better, because people won't be living with all these dysfunctional patterns. So, and yeah, and recovery is possible because you can, with hard work, like change these patterns. So definitely invest in something that will guide you through this process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's powerful, right? It is that hidden gift. It doesn't feel like a gift at the time. It feels like a curse, if anything, because you're suffering, you're feeling these symptoms, but it brings to the surface all of the patterns that kind of led you there in the first place. I've never met a single person. I've talked to probably thousands of people at this point who have hypersensitive nervous systems. They're all type A personalities. overthinking, they tend to overanalyze. Perfectionism is thrown in the mix there as well. They're go-getters. And these are great traits to have, but when pushed to the extreme, it can lead to something like CFS, right? Or long COVID. So people think it's the long COVID that puts them into this, or some certain event or one thing. It's not the one thing. That one thing is what pushed your body just over the edge, but you're already hovering on that edge anyways. And that is lifestyle. That's thinking patterns. So I think it forces people to level up, to create that 2.0 version of themselves. But also at the end of the day, they have a newfound appreciation for life, something that they would have never had if they never got sick in the first place. Right. So that's why once you come out of this, and for you guys watching right now, you may not realize it, but this is a gift in disguise. You just have to get through the trenches, get through the rough parts. But after this, you will have a new appreciation for life.
And I just want to add another insight that I had somewhere in the middle of my journey, back to the simplicity and the effectiveness of simplicity. In the program, like in one of our calls, one of the coaches used the example of like a possum going into freeze mode, and how that's essentially what's happening with us. It's all the symptoms are our body trying to put us in place because it perceives danger. And I remember thinking to myself, in order for a possum to get out of that state, it doesn't need to do anything overly complicated. It just needs to establish that it's safe. It makes sense that simple principles like responding well and responding calmly to symptoms and other circumstances would lead to a lot of progress, because, why would it have to be more complicated than that? Because we're animals as well. So as long as we're, signaling to our body that we're safe and calm in as simple a way as possible, then we're going to slowly come out of that, or even swiftly come out of that freeze mode. So
yeah, absolutely. That's huge. And that's another golden nugget. If you guys watching this right now, if you guys are watching this and you've had your blood tests, you've had your scans, you've seen doctors and specialists, and they're saying, you're completely normal. A part of that is true. I mean, obviously you're not completely normal because you have debilitating symptoms, but if they've ran tests on your body and they can't find anything, it's because your organs are actually okay. It's your nervous system that is having some glitches going on, right? It's just hypersensitive, right? And so when you signal to your brain, to your body that, hey, we're actually safe, it will start removing the symptoms. But it's that feeling of safety that's important. That's why the more anxious you are about symptoms, the more you work yourself up and get stressed about anything, the more symptoms you will feel. So it's just really interesting. That's why so many people could be resting physically, but their mind is running 1,000 miles an hour, which is why they can get worse and worse and worse, even resting all day. Whereas other people like you could be doing activities, many activities, increasing, but you continue to improve. It's because in your mind, you're neutralizing that fear and anxiety by responding well to symptoms, which is the golden rule of recovery. So, that's so true. And so, Jordan, you made a ton of progress. You're a lot more functional than you used to be, right? Just in the last year or so. You're still well on your way to recovery. There's still a little bit of ground to cover, but you're doing amazing. You're able to nearly live a normal life. So, what's on your plate right now? Just share with us what your life looks like these days.
yeah, so it's really interesting because before I joined the program, I was so anxious and dealing with so much fatigue and discomfort that I didn't want to be left alone for too long. So my mum was actually staying at my house at the time, and she actually had a holiday booked, and at the time, I just felt like, I need someone to be here while I'm dealing with this. And so I wasn't able to take on any big responsibilities or be on my own for a long time. And now I am actually getting back into doing something I really like, which is looking after pets for people. So I've been looking after a number of dogs now, which requires me to take them for walks every day when I have them. So I'm able to, whereas before, I could only walk a couple of times or a few times a week or 2 weeks. I can go a number of weeks when I have dogs, taking them for walks, and just taking on responsibility, looking after other people's pets. And I can actually make commitments in advance and say, yes, I can do this on this date. Whereas before, I didn't want to make any commitments because there was high likelihood that I would be in an AP, because I was in an AP every like 3 days or so. So that's what I'm doing at the moment, and I'm really enjoying it. And being with pets, I think, is actually helping me with my recovery as well, because their calmness, as long as they're calm dog, it rubs off on you. And yeah, it's been really good. Enjoying it so much.
That's exciting. Yeah, pets are super therapeutic. Well, most pets are.
Yeah.
As long as you don't have like some wild animal stressing you out, barking 24/7. My dog was very helpful in my recovery.
Well, it's actually good because like if they're a little bit difficult, it's an opportunity for me to practice my response. And then if they're calm, then it makes me feel calm as well, and it's a win-win. So I think it's the perfect job for right now.
Yeah, no, that is perfect. And that's a great way to look at it. And that's kind of how I look at life now. Things are going great. If things are challenging, then great. It's an opportunity to grow as a person. So yeah, it's been amazing having you share some of your story, a lot of your insight as well. Is there anything else you want to share with people? Any golden nuggets or final words of inspiration before we hop off?
Yeah, just the biggest thing is that CFS is truly an opportunity in disguise. It's definitely an opportunity to transform and level up, not just get better. So definitely invest in some guidance from another person who has gone through CFS to help you on the journey, because it can be difficult at times with the nuances of life. So that's why it's good to have a coach. But it'll definitely, if you go through the journey, you'll realize it's an opportunity in disguise. So
awesome, man. Thanks for sharing, and I appreciate your time. I'm sure these people watching right now appreciate your time. And guys, Jordan, it's not like he's an alien or has some magical superpowers. He's human, just like you are. Just follow some basic recovery principles. It's not easy, but when you stick to it and keep it simple, you can absolutely get your life back, right? Regardless of how you fell into this, it's the same way out for people dealing with these issues. So appreciate your time, Jordan. If you guys enjoyed this video, you got some value out of it, comment down below your biggest takeaway, any golden nuggets that Jordan dropped. He shared a lot of great insights. If you did want some help, you can click the link down below. You can apply for the program and see if you're a good fit. We want to make sure we can actually help you before we get started. So apply, see if you're a good fit, and always remember that you are a thriver and you are just one mind shift away from living a life with thriving health. See you guys in the next video. Thanks so much, Jordan. Appreciate it.